Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Bullies taunt new black student and immediately regret when they find out she's a boxer. Naomi Williams had always known this move wouldn't be easy. She'd left behind the familiar streets of Chicago's South Side, her friends, her haunts, and even her boxing gym, the sacred place where she'd learned to hit hard, not just with her fists, but with her will. At 17, she set foot for the first time in the smooth, impersonal halls of Crestwood High School, a high school located in an affluent Michigan suburb, miles from anything she knew. Crestwood was renowned, it's true. Its sports teams shone at regional competitions. The facilities were modern, the hallways bright, the lockers spotless. But what the school brochure didn't convey was the tense atmosphere beneath the surface, the heavy stares, the entrenched social hierarchies, the closed cliques, and the smirks reserved for outsiders. Especially those who didn't fit the mold. Naomi was black, the daughter of a boxing trainer respected in her neighborhood but unknown here, and a nurse mother who had worked multiple shifts to provide a decent life for her daughter. She was born and raised in a modest house, above a small gymnasium that her father passionately maintained. She had spent her childhood there, barefoot on the worn wooden floor, watching the boys sweat on the sandbag, before stepping into the ring herself. She had learned early on that life wouldn't be kind to her. That to earn respect, you sometimes had to speak with your fists. But she had also learned self-control, focus, and the elegance of silence. At 12, she was already training 2 hours a day. At 14, she was competing against older boys. At 16, she was the junior champion of her division in the state of Illinois. And now, she was walking into this new high school with all that baggage, and no one here knew it. That morning, she had gotten up before dawn. She had taken the time to put on her carefully chosen outfit, simple jeans, a black t-shirt, and a khaki jacket. Nothing extravagant, but every detail counted. She wanted to remain discreet, but not invisible. She wanted everyone to know, without a word, that she wasn't afraid. She looked at herself in the mirror, her brown skin a stark contrast against the light bathroom wall. Her hair was braided into long, thin braids that she had tied back. There was a determined glint in her eyes. This wasn't the first time she'd faced the unknown. But this time, it was different. This wasn't an opponent in the ring, but a social jungle where the slightest weakness could be exploited. When she walked through the doors of Crestwood High School that morning, her black backpack slung over her shoulder, she felt the eyes slide over her like silent arrows. Some faces were surprised, others closed off. Some were simply curious, others clearly hostile. But she kept walking, her head held high, her step steady. She didn't let anything show. Her heart was beating fast, it was true, but her face remained calm, impassive, as it always was when she entered a ring. She knew what she represented here, an outsider, a black girl in a predominantly white high school, a scholarship student in a world of privilege. But what no one knew yet was that she wasn't there to ask permission. She was there to exist, to assert herself, to make her presence heard without having to raise her voice. And she was ready to take the first blows, because she knew better than anyone how to respond. In the vast central courtyard of Crestwood High, where students huddled between classes, some to discuss, others to judge silently, Naomi attracted attention almost instantly. Lucas Mitchell's group noticed her as soon as she stepped up the cafeteria steps and slowly crossed the grounds. She walked alone, but with a striking confidence. She wore no ostentatious fashion logos, no flashy smile. Just herself, anchored in a quiet serenity. Lucas leaned against a wall, flanked by his 2 loyal lieutenants, Jake and Derek. All 3 were on the football team, known as much for their athleticism as for their domineering demeanor. They enforced an unwritten law, that of social hierarchy. They decided who was in, and who deserved to be sidelined. "Did you see that?" Jake whispered, jerking his chin at Naomi. "Yeah," Lucas replied without looking away. "She doesn't seem to know what she's getting into. Who does she think she is with her serious face?" Derek added, snickering. Lucas slowly straightened, ran his hand through his slick back hair, and walked toward Naomi like a wild animal approaching its prey. Jake and Derek immediately followed him, like two well-trained dogs. Naomi had stopped near an empty bench. She was calmly opening her bag when she felt the three figures approaching behind her. She looked up and met Lucas's gaze. He was wearing a smirk, the kind he reserved for easy prey, those who stuttered or looked away. "Well, look who we have here." "The new girl," he said in an exaggeratedly friendly voice, his arms crossed over his muscular chest. Naomi didn't answer immediately. She closed her bag, stood up slowly, and looked straight into his eyes. There was an intensity in her eyes, a quiet strength that briefly unnerved Lucas. "Do you think you can make a place for yourself here?" Jake added, arms spread wide as if he were presenting an arena. Derek, more mean, huffed with a twisted smile. "Or are you going to do like the others and stay in your corner while waiting for people to notice you?" Naomi looked at them one by one. She felt that old, familiar thrill, the one she sometimes felt before a fight, the calm before the storm. But she wasn't here to strike. Not yet. She crossed her arms in turn, mirroring Lucas. Her voice was calm, clear, without an ounce of hesitation. "I'm here to study, and to train. If you're looking for trouble, you can move on." The silence that followed was heavier than expected. Lucas frowned. He was used to seeing newcomers blush, stammer, and try to find a way out. But this girl, she didn't flinch. She wasn't even trying to impress. She was simply ready. And that was disturbing. Around them, a few students had stopped, watching the scene out of the corner of their eyes. One of them whispered, "She has guts." Lucas tried to regain control, taking a step towards her, slightly too close. Naomi didn't move. "Training, huh?" he said wryly. "What? Dancing? Sewing?" Naomi stared at him with icy calm. Then she answered, softly. "Boxing." This time, it was Derek who let out a dry laugh, quickly stifled. "Are you serious?" Naomi didn't answer. She didn't need to convince them. She knew that actions always spoke louder than words. And sooner or later, they would see. Lucas, on the other hand, looked at her more somberly, as if he'd just lost the first round without understanding how. This wasn't just news anymore. It was a mystery, an anomaly. And for someone like him, that wasn't okay. But Lucas wasn't one to give up. He felt his authority undermined by this newcomer with her cold, confident gaze. His wounded ego demanded that he react. He took a threatening step forward, his face closed, his brow furrowed. "Do you want to see if you're really tough?" he asked in a low voice, almost a challenge. Derek, always quick to follow Lucas's orders, abruptly approached Naomi. Without warning, he tried to snatch her backpack, thinking the move would be enough to unsettle her, make her back away, or even scream. But Naomi was ready. Her years of training translated into honed reflexes. She dodged Derek's arm with astonishing fluidity, shifting her weight just enough to keep her balance. Then, with a quick, controlled movement, she pushed Derek away with a firm but precise shove, as if she'd faced far worse before. "Stop that!" Derek cried, staggering back, surprised by the strength and control she was displaying. Around them, the students froze, their chatter falling silent. All eyes were fixed on this unexpected confrontation. Some murmured among themselves, impressed, others seemed shocked. Lucas's face hardened, his anger barely concealing his astonishment. He approached, more furious than ever. "What are you doing?" he almost yelled, incredulous to see his victim turn against him like this. Naomi didn't move. She raised her head and stared straight into his eyes, her gaze a quiet but burning flame. "I'm a boxer." "Do you really want to see what that means?" she said in a firm voice, without trembling. Without warning, she took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Her right fist rose, ready to strike, but she didn't try to hit Lucas. She sent a sharp punch through the air, inches from Derek's face, so he could see the speed and power contained in the gesture. The crisp sound of his fist punching the air echoed, sending a shiver through the spectators. The bullies instinctively took a step back. The message was clear: she was not a girl to be underestimated, nor a mere obstacle to be crushed. Naomi let out a whisper, enough for Lucas and his cohorts to hear, laden with challenge and promise. "You're going to regret making fun of me." There was the certainty in her voice of someone who had worked hard for every blow, for every silent victory. She had paid the price in blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. And she wasn't going to let these bullies silence her. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with tension. Lucas swallowed his anger, his jaw clenched. He knew this confrontation wouldn't end there, but for now, he chose to back away, reluctantly respecting a force he couldn't ignore. Naomi picked up her bag, her face impassive, but her heart beating a little faster. She had just made her mark. Crestwood would have to learn to know her, to respect her, or pay the price. In the days that followed, Crestwood High School vibrated with a new, almost electric buzz. In the hallways, in the cafeteria, on the athletic field, a nickname circulated from mouth to mouth, whispered with a mixture of respect, astonishment, and admiration: the Crestwood boxer. She was no longer just the black girl or the new girl, she had become a symbol. In a matter of minutes, Naomi Williams had redefined her place in a hierarchy that was thought to be immutable. The students who, the day before, had ignored her or watched her from afar with suspicion, now looked at her with different eyes. Some, fascinated, secretly inquired about her. Others, more courageous, approached her directly. "Where do you train? Could you show me some moves? Do you think I could try boxing too?" Even members of the football team, once mocking or silent during confrontations, began to observe him during his solitary breaks. One day, a first grader timidly stopped him in the hallway. You inspired me. My brother is getting bullied here. But ever since I saw you, I've been thinking maybe I can do something, too." Naomi had looked at her, touched her, then simply placed a hand on her shoulder. "You can. You just have to learn to stop being afraid." Lucas, for his part, had walled himself into frustrated silence. He carefully avoided crossing paths with Naomi, but his wounded pride was eating away at him. His leadership aura was slowly beginning to crumble. Several students he controlled with fear were realizing there was another kind of strength, the kind you don't shout at, the kind that doesn't require yelling or humiliation. As for Naomi, she remained true to who she was. Every morning, she trained before class in a small city park, performing sets of air punches, push-ups, and sprints, always alone. In the afternoon, she sometimes went to work out at the old community gym, where worn gloves hung and the smell of leather and sweat spoke of yesterday's battles. She wasn't looking for fame or attention. She just wanted to live in peace, learn, and fit in without denying herself. But in the face of injustice, she was never silent. When a student in a wheelchair was mocked one day in the cafeteria, she was the one who stood up, walked straight to the mockers, and, with a single look, silenced them. Without a word. The teachers noticed too. Mrs. Garcia, the English teacher, discreetly congratulated her one morning. "You bring something here, Naomi. A kind of honesty you don't often see at your age. Never lose it." Little by little, Crestwood was changing. Slowly, but surely. More discreet, more different, students began to raise their heads. The Naomi effect wasn't measured in shouts or blows, but in assertive looks, daring voices, and young people who understood they weren't alone. More than just a matter of provocation or ego, Naomi's arrival was a turning point. A spark. She had shown that true strength lay not in domination or fear, but in self-control, respect, and the courage to stand firm in the face of the storm. She broke down barriers, overturned codes, and proved that the most powerful force is often silent, that of being yourself, whatever the cost. And for those willing to listen, to see beyond appearances, Naomi Williams became much more than a boxer. She became an example. A quiet strength. A living lesson.